I'm going to break down some of the stuff that's gone on with Brooklyn Beckham and the public affair of his family that has been going at each other around him getting married, him splitting from his mother, which I'm going to be talking about, the Devouring Mother, and break down his actual statement. Now, this is fascinating because I've been talking about this for some time, and this is an epidemic in our society, and boys have stopped becoming separate from their mother. Now, there's a reason for this, okay? The reason that this has happened is because we've lost contact with rites of passage and initiatory experiences. Now, the rite of passage is something that was essential in tribes and older cultures. Now, what that means is the rite of passage is the passage from boyhood to manhood. Very simple. The initiation, however, serve the function that what it needs to do is teach boys about emotions. Now, in popular psychology, I'm going to hear all the women go, yes, teach the boys about emotions, feelings first, all that. It's not. It's actually about teaching them how not to fold under their emotional weight. Why do they do this? Because it makes the boy reliable. Now, what they would do is they would take the boy out into the wilderness, perform a series of tasks, and if he completed the allotted time, some were a month, others were up to 2 years. So they'd separate him from the mother, take him to the wilderness, and he would have to return in the allotted time. If he didn't return in the allotted time, he would never be allowed to try to repeat the task again, and he would never be fully considered a man. Okay, because the tribe relied on the strength of men. And we've lost that in our culture. And so what's happened as an adaptation to that is the devouring mother has emerged. And we live in a social devouring mother. Make no mistake about it. Now, the core aspects and characteristics of a devouring mother, it's a psychological concept that is archetypal in nature, coined by Jung and then really solidified by his apprentice Erich Neumann. Now, the characteristics of that, I won't go too far into this, I'm just prefacing this so we know what we're dealing with Brooklyn Beckham. The core characteristics are smothering and overprotecting the child, control disguised as love, enmeshment, which is blurred boundaries, so the child will often be fused to the mother. Infantilisation, so she never lets the boy grow up. The child's always going to be treated as a kid, even when they're adults. And so they never actually go through the rite of passage of splitting from her and taken from her, sent out into the wilderness and the hero's journey in order to mature. And fear of abandonment is often at the core of this. Quite often with smothering or neglectful mothers, narcissistic mothers as well. I know because I had one of those, and this was one of the things that I had to overcome in order to move into mature masculinity. So I'm going to bring up the statement from Brooklyn. All right. I've been silent for years and made every effort to keep these matters private. Unfortunately, my parents and their team have continued to go to the press, leaving me with no choice but to speak for myself and tell the truth about only some of the lies that have been printed. So he's kind of been forced into a sense of independence here by virtue of him saying no choice but to speak for himself. It's an important thing to know here. What I see here is that he's been cornered. And if he's been cornered, quite often when the boy seeks independence, he's really going to have to take every measure he can in order to assert his independence. So I continue. I do not want to reconcile with my family. I'm not being controlled. I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life. The fact that he's gone public with this is huge. Think about his whole life associated with the press, being in the perfect family, a media-driven family. So much of this is a huge move for him to have to take on. I mean, he's really put his family in it if everything he says in this is true. Now, obviously, I don't know them. I don't follow celebrity at all. I think celebrity is one of the most toxic cultures in our society, especially with everything with Epstein going on at the moment. I don't want to know about it. And I haven't wanted to know about it for some time. But this is a fascinating case study because this absolutely indicates devouring mother. I'll continue. For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family, the performative social media posts, family events, and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of my life, of the life I was born into. Recently, I've seen with my own eyes the lengths they'll go through to place countless lies in the media, mostly at the expense of innocent people, simply to preserve their own facade. But I believe the truth always comes out. This is what I always say to people as well. On a long enough time horizon, the truth will always come out. And in abusive relationships, I can tell you this is something that comes out. It absolutely does. So my parents have been trying to endlessly ruin my relationship since before my wedding. This is a pretty strong sign that if parents are trying to ruin the wedding, it can be a really, it's a sign of enmeshment, and it can be a really difficult space for a kid to operate in when they haven't been allowed to go out into the world, when they haven't been allowed to individuate, when they haven't been allowed to differentiate, which is what this process is right now, what he's going through. Then this is the sort of stuff that goes down. This is the stuff that will emerge in time. So my mum cancelled making Nicola's dress in the 11th hour despite how excited she was to wear her design, forcing her to urgently find a new dress. This is really interesting. Now, this woman, Nicola, is from a billionaire family, so I doubt it was the only dress that she had. But if Victoria refused to finish the dress and she wouldn't, then that's a power play. That is a mother that is still vying for the affection of the son and will not hand him over to Nicola. There was another clip that they went through, which was about Netflix. I think it was a Netflix thing. She wouldn't touch the son. The son was kind of trying to make nice. Brooklyn was trying to make nice. And you could just see how miserable the two women were. So whatever's going on here, whether it's Victoria, whether it's Nicola, there's unhealthy feminine dynamics going on here. Very unhealthy feminine dynamics. I mean, this goes back to, ancient days in the Bible about, if you marry the wrong woman, it's going to lead you to hell. So, weeks before our big day, my parents repeatedly pressured and attempted to bribe me into signing away the rights to my name, which would have affected me, my wife, and our future children. They were adamant on me signing before my wedding date because then the terms of the deal would be initiated. And he said my holdout affected the payday. And they've never treated me the same since. Now, I would love to know what this means. There's a lot of innuendo in there. It's not exactly being super clear. But this sounds like it's just business as usual. Like it's the Beckham brand, which is the business. It's not really honoring what he's going through. Like to sign the rights of your name away before the wedding, and it affected the payday. These are very material based aspects. And why would that matter? I mean, she comes from a billionaire family. He comes from I don't know if they're billionaires, but I mean, are we splitting hairs at that level of wealth? It staggers me to try to understand that, of why that would be an issue. Anyway, the more of the stuff here that's coming out is more important than that. During the wedding planning, my mum went so far as to call me evil because Nicola and I chose to include Nanny Sandra and Nicola's nanny at our table because they both didn't have their husbands. The mother calling him evil, Victoria calling him evil. That's a big statement as well. Like, the unhealthy tendrils of this are starting to spill out. But it's still not the main part of this that I want to get to. The night before our wedding, members of my family told me that Nicola was not blood and not family. This is the good stuff now. What this means is most people don't know, and what people don't realize is there's the saying, blood is thicker than water. Okay, most people think that the blood of family is thicker than the water, the substance of water, but it's not. What it actually means is the blood of the cup of Christ, meaning those who I choose to congregate with, is thicker than the water of the womb by virtue of those who I'm born with. Now, we see in the Bible, it says this, it will say that the person is meant to leave, I don't know if it's the son or whoever, or if it's the daughter or both, they're meant to leave the family. Family of creation is meant to supersede family of origin. Healthy individuals will be developed when they split from the mother and split from the father. Splitting from the mother means emotional sovereignty. He does not have this. He's trying to obtain it. Splitting from the father means developing inner authority. In the absence of these two structures that they've been brought up with and fused with and merged with, this is what is happening here. It's a very powerful process, and life will make you do it one way or another. But to play this out on such a public affair is pretty big. And I'd say this is just his last resort. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried everything prior to this to get away. So since the moment I started standing up for myself with my family, I've received endless attacks from my parents, both privately and publicly, that were sent to the press on their orders. Here's where it gets interesting as well. And this is classic in a narcissistic system. Even my brothers were sent to attack me on social media before they ultimately blocked me out of nowhere this last summer. These are called flying monkeys, and it's also triangulation that is going on here. So triangulation is where the head of the center of the chaos, so this can be friends groups, it can be a boss, it can be a family, whatever, it doesn't matter. But generally what will happen is let's say in this instance, the parents of the unhealthy system, what they will do is they will send the siblings after the one that's trying to escape, to try to pull them back in. Because what happens is identities in this space have been created. There's a black sheep, golden child, enabler, and the lost child. And so imagine a baby mobile that hangs over the cot when the baby's trying to sleep. It goes like this, and it's usually 4 pieces in it. These are all have like a minor weight to them, but if you take one off, the whole thing falls apart. They balance each other out. This is the same as in these systems. Now, I saw an interview with David, and in the video, he said, well, children make mistakes. You kind of just have to let them make mistakes. When I saw that, he completely infantilized him, which is what I said the devouring mother does, but it can also be in the system that is devouring, that doesn't allow for individual identity or self-sufficiency. And he just made it out like Brooklyn was a kid. And when I saw that, I went, he's not even defending his son. He's just calling him basically a stupid little child. He didn't actually say that, but I believe that was the implication. Like, well, children make mistakes. He's not a child. He's a 26-year-old man, and he's married. And he's leaving the family. And I personally believe that if David was legit about it, he would say something along the lines of, yeah, look, all boys need to grow up and they need to assert themselves as a man. They need to leave the nest, and that's what he's doing. And it's unfortunate that it's gotten to this point where it's so public, but I support him in what he does, and just know that we love him and we'll support him in this endeavor that he's going on. But I don't see why someone like this, like Brooklyn, would just exit out and then make claims like this. They're all very specific. Anyway, I continue. Even my brothers were sent to attack me. My mum hijacked my first dance with my wife, which had been planned weeks in advance, to a romantic love song in front of our 500 wedding guests. So this is public shaming. And this is also a public declaration of territory to shame not only Brooklyn, but Nicola as well. I mean, this is atrocious. This is true, and I've heard that it is true. It's atrocious. So in front of our 500 wedding guests, Mark Anthony called me to the stage where in the schedule was planned to be my romantic dance with my wife, but instead my mum was waiting to dance with me instead. She danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. I've never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life. We wanted to renew our vows so we could create new memories of our wedding day that bring us joy and happiness. Now, I saw photos of this because I did a little bit of research on this. And again, I wouldn't normally comment on celebrities, but I think that when these things break down in the public like this, I think there's a case for it to demonstrate what exactly is going on. You hear people going on about how ungrateful he is, then people saying on the other side about the parents. I think that this is something that is found in the sort of quarter-life crisis that Brooklyn's going through at 25, which these exits out of family systems will usually try to happen at 15. That's where delinquency and problem children kick in the teenage years. And then if they don't do it there, they'll go 25. And then if not at 25, 35. And then if you really don't get it, it will happen at 45. And this is where crisis hits. What he's attempting to do is to differentiate and create a separate sense of self from his family. Now, his family doesn't want that to happen. That's why he's doing this, because he's trying to maintain his independence. He's not being taken seriously, which is very emasculating for a man. He's left the family to start his own family. Now, the devouring mother sees the children as her territory, but binds to them in an emotionally fused way. What's happened is Brooklyn is now choosing another woman over Victoria, and here we are with this kind of behavior from Victoria. This is classic devouring mother. It's classic fusion that he's stuck in with his mother, and he's like, no, I don't want any of it. And this is what happens. It explodes like this. It cracks open, and she can't hold on to him. So he goes on, my wife has been consistently disrespected by my family, no matter how hard we've tried to come together as one. My mum has repeatedly inviting women from my past into our lives in ways that were clearly intended to make us both uncomfortable. What she's doing here is she's triangulating. She's trying to play older women, not older, but older women in Brooklyn's life, off against Nicola. This is a power play. It's very narcissistic as well. And I mean, to be fair, I don't know Victoria, but as someone in that space, famous, married to David, that kind of public image, that kind of wealth, it leads to grandiosity, which is the main trait of narcissism. And, all you got to do is look at someone like Conor McGregor as an example. He kind of became the mad king from all the attention and fame and money and life he went into, that you saw him melt down publicly as he went through it. And you can see the effects that fame would have on people, and I don't see why this would be any different. Brooklyn just seems to be somewhat real about it, and he's making huge claims in this, which is why I would tend to believe him more so than what his family would say about it. Especially sending the kids after him, or sending his siblings after him, Victoria sending the kids after him to try to pull him back in. Then they're blocked, dancing on him at his wedding. There's just so many red flags here. But again, this is classic splitting from the mother. It's classic splitting from the mother. Despite this, we still traveled to London for my dad's birthday and were rejected for a week as we waited in our hotel room, trying to plan quality time with him. He refused all of our attempts. Another power play here too. Unless it was at his big birthday party with 100 guests and cameras at every corner. When he finally agreed to see me, it was under the condition that Nicola wasn't invited. Another power play. I kind of feel that Victoria's the matriarch of this family for some reason. It was a slap in the face. Later, when my family traveled to LA, they refused to see me at all. This is really important. My family values public promotion and endorsements above all else. So narcissistic structures and families are all about image. They're all about everyone seeing them as perfect without ever displaying what goes on behind the scenes. It's always family first. It's always family first. And it's always just sweep it under the rug, forgive and forget. It's almost like a cult. You don't go outside the cult. And the reason why you don't go outside the cult is because you will develop an individual, independent sense of self. Why does that matter? Is because then you can't be controlled. You can't be manipulated at that point. That's why it's so important. Brooklyn Beckham comes first. He continues. Family love and he puts love in inverted commas, is decided by how much you post on social media or how quickly you drop everything to show up and pose for a family photo opportunity, even if it's at the expense of our professional obligations. We've gone out of our way for years to show up and support at every fashion show, every party, every press activity, show our perfect family. But the one time my wife asked for mum's support to save displaced dogs during LA fires, my mum refused. I don't know why a billionaire's daughter would need help from Victoria Beckham with saving displaced dogs. I'm sure they've got multiple millions of dollars anyway, so I don't really see why that's important or necessary to include. The narrative that my wife controls me is completely backward. Now, look, that's an interesting one because he's been controlled his whole life, which he goes on to say. I think he's chosen a woman that's very similar to his mother. That's what I think. And I would predict that it probably won't last, this wedding. It won't, this marriage. Simply because it sounds like they're probably both relatively entitled women. They're probably both quite strong-headed. She seems quite masculine, the mother, Victoria. And I'd imagine that he's probably attracted in something similar. And I don't see it lasting, but I mean, who cares if it does or not? He goes on to say, I grew up with overwhelming anxiety for the first time in my life. Since stepping away from my family, that anxiety has disappeared. This is so important, this statement. In fact, I probably think it's the most important statement. When you're in an abusive relationship, when you know it's bad and when you're out, you will start to feel relief instantly. He even says, I wake up every morning grateful for the life I chose and have found peace and relief. My wife and I do not want a life shaped by image, press, or manipulation. All we want is peace, privacy, and happiness for us and our future family. So it's quite telling that even having riches and lots of money and access and image and status and fame, all of it, can't supplant the desire for peace and relief and happiness in a relationship. I would say that he probably just wants to be left alone. I would say that where this goes from here, I don't know, and it doesn't matter, but this is what happens when you're in a system with a devouring mother. Okay, you'll get a passive father, which David seems to be a passive father. Then you'll end up with one of the children, if there's more than one, attempting to break away. But every child needs to break away, and especially the male. The male absolutely must break away in order to break free. Boy psychology to man psychology is fundamentally found in this. They have to separate from the mother. They have to be given to the elder males to be initiated. And you can see David's complicit in Victoria's devouring mother construct because he says, children make mistakes. He doesn't let him go. He doesn't want him to go. He just tries to ridicule him and shame him back into the family by calling him a child. So we go boy to man psychology. The man matures, he's given to the elder males, the elder masculine men, and we've lost contact with that in our society. That's why this stuff happens. This is the stuff that I teach in my men's group. I walk people through this, I give them access to this, and I help them separate from toxic feminine dynamics. I'll put the details in the caption below.